So there's a couple of ways that we're going to use video editing and storing video that are kind of going to work for us. So as Dave alluded to, one of the challenges with um, managing video is the file size. So uh, traditionally, we would be using some kind of cloud storage like Dropbox or some other kind of online storage, which we know can be backed up. With video files, they can be so large that it's just not feasible to upload them and to pay to store them, right? So that leaves us with, what do we do with all these files? We put all this time into creating all this video. How do we get to them? How do we collaborate with other people? Did it, I feel like I'm coming through your mic. Can you mute? There we go. Okay. Blake's tuning in on the couch over here, and I was coming through. All right. So there's a couple of ways we could do it. I mean, obviously, if you shoot video and you want to store it locally on your computer, you can do that. But if you're collaborating, and this is like a church event, really the best way to do it is to put it on a hard drive at the church, right? And specifically, we have a server for that. We have a network attached storage, which is basically its own little server that sits in the server rack at JC. I also have one at my house that we use for a business and for other church related stuff. And then the Scrinzies have a small one at their cabin, right? And the reason you would want to use one of these is a couple of reasons. Hard drives fail. Every hard drive is going to fail. It's only a matter of time. And when it does fail, you'll come to realize that the value of your data stored on it is a lot more valuable than the hard drive itself. So the enclosures that we use are what we call a RAID 5. RAID 5 means one disk redundancy. On the church NAS, I actually had a drive fail a couple of months ago, but it's one drive redundancy. So I took that drive out, put a new drive in, it rebuilt the array, and now we're back up and running. And then another one failed a couple of weeks ago, so I took that one out, put a new one in, right? And as this goes, we can continually make sure that this data is secure, right? Wow. I could do 2 drive redundancy if we wanted to pay for it. There's a lot of different ways we could do it. We use the NAS at church to back up the video computer, so we've got videos on that computer plus running a backup. So depending on your level of security, how important that data is to you, if it's like mission essential, do or die, you probably should have it backed up in multiple locations, versus just having it in one spot. If you just want a decent amount of redundancy where you need this stuff to work on it, but it's not like you shot somebody's wedding and you can't really save that, then I think that one disk redundancy is probably the right answer. So that's why we're storing stuff at the church. So if it's at the church, well, how do you work on it? I mean, obviously we're not sitting there working on it the whole time. The answer to that is remote desktop. So I'm going to show you how I work. Chrome Remote Desktop is an app that we use now. So I'm going to go ahead and launch that. We used to use TeamViewer, and we've gotten away from TeamViewer just because we've had a lot of access issues with TeamViewer. And it's just been a bit temperamental. So we switched over to Chrome Remote Desktop, which is free. I will give all of you access to our team or our account if you want to use it. They have a couple of computers. You've got Auburn's in here. There's a Cafe laptop. Margie's Studio Mac is even on here, right? You got all these computers on here. There's Auburn Media PC. So Terry, I could log into your computer from here. We're going to go into the video PC. Now, each of these computers has a pin, right? For the for the church computers that we don't really restrict access to people that have gotten this far. So Emily's computer, she's got a pin for hers. I've got a pin for mine that we keep separate. So I'm going to click on the video PC because this is where we're going to start. So this is the video PC in booth 3 up in the sanctuary where we do most of our video editing. So when you first pop this open, note that it's a dual monitor, so you see both screens, which is Not really helpful because we want to zip into one of the screens. We can't really see this. I mean, you probably can't see much there. So I'm going to pop out this tab here, and this is the control panel for Chrome Remote Desktop. Note that I can do full screen if I want. I'll just do that now because we're going to use this. If you go down here to displays, we're going to show display 1. And that is going to let us just see the one display. You also have access to file transfer. You can upload or download files from the remote computer, which is a point of convenience if you're working on a project. All right, so I'll throw that back in here. So now I just got to close this. Okay, now we see the desktop. This is our video computer, and we're going to create a new file. So I've got Davinci Resolve that I'm going to launch. So I've installed Davinci Resolve. Note that it's Davinci Resolve 16. And while that's launching, I'm going to talk a little bit about Davinci Resolve. So this is software made by Blackmagic Design. There's a free version, which is what we're using, and then there's a paid version. The paid version is like $300, and it's a one-time license. I think for most of the video editing that we're doing, I think that the free version is more than sufficient, but there are some advantages to going with the paid version, which I'll get to in a little bit. The latest version is 17, so if you want to update to the latest one, that's fine, but that's not the one that we're going to be doing this on. So there's a bunch of old projects in here. So these are all of the different projects that, you know, for various services, right? Note that they're all kept in one central repository. So that's different from Premiere. Premiere, you had a project file for each project individually that we'd keep in whatever folder. This has a central repository, but it's just for the project. It's not for the source files. So I'm going to click on new project, and I pulled up a video that we're going to use. It's from, I'm just going to name it. We like to organize things by dates. Tony's ordination. There we go. I found this file on here and I saw nobody edited it, so I figured it'd be a good place to start. So I'm going to create a project called Tony's ordination, right? And then the first thing that we see here is tabs on the bottom. I want to direct you to the tabs. If at any point I'm moving too quick, you guys can just jump in and ask a question. I don't mind stopping to ask questions. That's the benefit of being on live, is that you get to slow me down and ask questions if you miss something, right? So as we're working with Davinci Resolve, we're going to be working from left to right here on these tabs on the bottom. So that's kind of the progression, and we'll spend more on sub tabs than others, but this is basically the import and media pool. So there's the kind of the middle line here. Can you guys see my mouse?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, I just want to make sure you can see what I'm pointing at.
Yep.
Below the line is inside your project. Everything above the line is you navigating through your computer, right? So we could navigate over here to capture drive, capture, boom, boom. I know where these files are.
Oh, that's like your Windows Explorer file finder.
Exactly.
Right.
So you can use this, or you can just go to File Explorer and drag down direct.
Oh, you could drag and drop too.
You can drag and drop, or you can drag from here. It is up to you, but note that when you're here, you can kind of hover your mouse and scrub through footage.
Well, that's cool.
That may be a point of convenience if you're not sure what you're bringing in. So I'm going to drag and release here. The clips have a different frame rate than the current project settings. So we always want to change. We always want to work in the file settings of our primary file. So if you have a primary source file that makes up the bulk of your footage, or this is the file that you shot in, but you may have a couple other clips that you're including, bring your main file, your main source footage in first, and let it drive the settings of your project. So I'm going to hit change, and I want to allow it to change. Okay.
They auto configure.
Yeah. So basically, it's Resolve says I'm going to make the settings of this project the same as your source file. So we want to allow it to change it to what our source file is, our main source file. I'm also going to drag some other stuff in here. I'm going to grab, we probably don't need giving. Well, grab these. So this is our intro, outro, and lower thirds. I'm going to drag that in like that. And then I'll pop that back up. All right, so now we've got the stuff that we need. For now anyways. Next we'll go to the cut tab. So the cut tab is purely optional. You may find that you're more comfortable just going right to the edit tab, but if you do want to use it, I'm gonna, grab this footage, drop it down here onto a timeline. I think you might want me to drop it here. Okay. I'll drop it there. And this is used for basically cutting your footage that you're bringing in. So you kind of use it just to trim to where you want to start. I don't know. Let's say we want to start here. I'm not going to go crazy with it. This middle thing here is your entire file, right? This is the frame that you're currently looking at, and this on the bottom here is a close-up. So you may find that this is a pretty convenient way to do it. You can grab the end here and you can bring it over. Nope. It's probably not a very easy way to show it. Wherever the playhead is where we're going to take action. So I'm going to say the easiest way to do that is to select I, which means in. And I'm going to grab my playhead, move down to another spot, and I'm going to hit out here, right? So I just set ins and outs. So I hit I and O. Those are the hot buttons for in and out, and that's common across the different editing platforms.
I was going to say, are the shortcuts pretty much the same between Premiere and this?
Not as many as you would think, but those ones are the same. You would hope that there would be more, because when you install Davinci Resolve, it'll ask you if you want to use presets from like Premiere, and some of them are the same, but most of them are different. So your mileage may vary.
So is that Control I, Control O?
No, it's just I and O.
And is there a scroll bar like in iMovie? There's a scroll bar across the bottom you can grab and scroll from front to back.
Oh yeah, so that's similar to how it works here. I'm just grabbing the playhead and I'm scrolling with the playhead. Right. So this is a good way to kind of ingest an entire video clip, especially if it's a long one. You visually see the entire clip, and then if you need to make close-up adjustments, you can grab the close-up playhead down at the bottom here for really like frame-by-frame adjustments, and then you can also see it up here. So you may find this convenient, may not. If you want to just head right to the edit tab, you can do that. So we're going to spend most of our time here in the edit tab. I'm going to zip out to the whole thing. So I set ins and outs over there, and you can see that my in is right here and my out is over here. And we can always change that later. I can scan over to here, hit out. All right, cool. So let's say this is this area of footage that I want to use. I'm going to grab the razor blade. I'm going to slice that, grab my mouse again. I'm going to get rid of this, okay? Now, when I get rid of this, you want to pay attention. If I hit delete, that means ripple delete. Does anyone know what ripple delete is? Any,
It's all deleted.
All right, ripple delete means delete everything in between and butt up the footage that you have. Don't leave a hole, right? So I've hit backspace. Backspace just means get rid of it, right? I'm going to Control Z to undo that. I'm going to select it again, and then I'm going to hit delete. Boom, everything moves forward, right? So I had ins and outs set here, but everything that I cut, it starts. This is right where I cut it now. So it deleted everything in front of that and just brought it all the way forward. Does that make sense? Yeah, let me show another example. So let's say I want to get rid of this, right? I'm going to slice here and here. Go back to my mouse. I'm going to select that. And then if I hit delete, watch what happens. Boom, everything in the middle scrunches together. So that's ripple delete. I'll back this up. and that's backspace, leaves a space, right? But we don't want to do that. So we're just going to leave that open.
So backspace would be a helpful function if you wanted to replace it with a different clip.
Exactly. If you want to leave the space in there, you use backspace. If you want to, if you're chopping stuff out and you just want the footage before it and after it to butt up together,
Yeah.
then you hit delete. It's called a ripple delete.
Okay.
Ripple delete is kind of the industry standard terminology for that. So also I can hit up and down, which snaps the playhead to various places on the timeline. I can also step through frame by frame if I use arrow buttons. So arrow left and right allows you to select frame by frame. Yeah, you can hear him talking really slow. But yeah, the edit tab is really where you make your money. So let me do some other orientation here. So this is your project bin up here. So these are all the files that you brought in when you were on the media tab here. So that's how you get to it. You've got your effects over here, which we'll cover a little bit. You got a few video effects and audio effects. Remember, we're in the free version, so it's a little more limited. You've got your preview of each individual piece of footage up here. Select actual footage. Hold on. Okay, I double clicked on it and now it's up here, right? So if I want to preview through a particular file, this is your file preview. This is your timeline preview. So this is your timeline down here. This is where we're building everything, right? So timeline, right? And then this is file preview in your media bin. And also this is accessed up here. So I can have one consolidated view or I can show both. So I want to show both right now, but we may want to save some space later on. A couple other things to pay attention to. I have my mixer out here. So this is the mixer toggle. I like to see audio bars because I like to see my audio, you know, where my audio is at. So I like to leave that up, and this allows you to make adjustments. There's a few ways to make adjustments, but I just like to have that out. Also, if we want to take a look at a particular file, there's metadata that can be helpful. You know, you can see what the frame rate is, what the audio is, you know, different pieces of metadata. I can see that it's 2997 frame rate. I can see the audio refresh rate, you know, 2-channel. See a lot of things in here. Oh, look at that. That's not even 1080p. Interesting. Okay. Close metadata. And then the inspector. So the inspector is actually fairly important because when we start making changes to a particular clip, all that stuff is going to show up in here, right? So my color, my audio effects, this is all going to show up in the inspector. That's how I get to it. And you want to pay attention to the inspector because depending on what you've selected, it's going to show different things. There's different, you know, layers that you can be working on. All right, and close the inspector. Oh, tools. Let's talk about the tools. So this is the selector arrow. Obviously, this is the razor that we use to slice up video. It'll usually snap to where the playhead is, or I can choose a random space out here to slice something. This is the magnet. So if I turn the magnet off, this is what snaps, right? It snaps to where the playhead is, or it snaps to the end of a clip, right? If you find that you're having a hard time selecting something that's close to your playhead and you don't want it snapping, you can toggle that on and off. This links the clip, it links the video and the audio together. If you were in a scenario where you had your video and your audio were out of sync with each other and you needed to make a small adjustment to it or something like that, you would unlink them. You could make your adjustment and then see I can select each of these individually, or you can cut and edit each one individually. But I don't want to do that. I want to keep them together so that way, because I know they're already synced, I want to make sure they stay synced and I don't accidentally drag one without the other. So I will leave them locked or synced together. Yeah. So that these two are can be fairly important. These tools, I don't want to go into them too much. I mean, they just help you kind of ripple edit things. So you can drag the start point here or the end point. I mean, this is kind of doing the same thing that we did before with the razor. They were slicing and deleting, but with this, you know, it's just dragging the end point. So that can be convenient to use that.
So like if you had some, if you had some noise on the front end before you actually started the message content, you could actually just move that forward and eliminate that, just like in iMovie.
Yeah, so if you had like, you wanted to start the video, but you had a little bit of audio that was not cooperating with you. Let's see, snap to the beginning. No, not gonna snap, okay. All right, yeah, so if you had like the first few seconds here, and you wanted to get rid of something in the beginning, you know, you could just grab this. Whoop. Oh. No, okay, we'll cut this. Cut you, select, backspace, boom. See what I mean? And then you can go back and you can reattach. Boom, now they're together again. And oh, no, I lied. Hold Control, so you select them both. Okay, well, now I'm lying. It's not working.
Well, it's synced up with the audio, right? Where the video comes in, the audio is synced up.
Yeah. Link clips, there we go. Okay, yeah. Apparently they're only on links. I don't know. I just had to highlight both of them and then hit link clips. So unlinked, right, and then linked. So now they're linked again. So I just nipped the audio in the beginning, right? And then the audio comes in there. All right, so let's say that's kind of abrupt where it just starts there, right? I want a nice smooth in, and I also want to smooth in my beginning here with like a dissolve. Let's say I want to dissolve up from black. I'll grab this head here and I'll drag it however far I want to drag it. So see the time there? There's like a little like 2:13.
Yeah.
That's 2 seconds and 13 frames. Remember, we're shooting 30 frames a second, or 29.97, close enough, right? So if I want a 1 second dissolve, boom, there it is, right about there. Okay. So now look at what happens. See, that brings it up, a fade up from black. Same thing with the audio. I can grab the corner here. Make sure you grab the corner, because if you grab the edge, it's not going to work. If you grab the edge, it's just going to drag this whole thing. See what I mean?
iMovie style, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the edge. That's the corner, right? It's just the very top of the corner. And when I do that, I'll drag it a little more just for emphasis. There's a slow volume fade up. You hear that? So those are nice things that you can do to kind of create nice intros and outros where it's not an abrupt cut in on something. You can also do that between clips if you find that solves your problem. Let me finish the navigation here. I don't want to get sidetracked. You can create markers. That's a marker on the timeline. I'm going to hit the clip and now hit that again. Now I've created a marker on the clip. So you can always mark clips if there's something in particular that you want to refer back to. You can select that, and that'll stay consistent throughout the project if you reuse that clip in multiple places. That's helpful where you don't have to find it. Like, let's say, oh, my preaching starts here. I want to select that, and I'll come back and refer to it later. You know, that can be a point of convenience because you can see the playhead snaps to it. So those can be pretty useful. These are the navigation tools here. You'll find you're using these a lot. This means show my entire clip. This is close up on the playhead, and it's pretty close. And then this is custom, where it just allows you to zip in and zip out. I find that I use this one probably the most because I know where I want to be zoomed into, right?
And that expands and contracts the actual clip, basically.
Exactly. Yeah, it's just a zoom. It zooms in and out. So if you have a long message, you'll find that you're probably zooming in and out quite a bit. But you can just tap back and forth to see the entire thing, to see where you are, and then you can zip into a particular spot, or you get really close with a close up. So these are constant so far as where they zoom to, and then this one is a variable one set by the arrows here. Make sense?
Now, can you do that fade in, fade out function from the corners that you did in the beginning? Can you do it into a fade out, like an outro sequence?
Oh yeah, sure. Let's go to the end here. I'm not sure why it's not snapping anymore. Whatever. We'll zip in here. Boom. All right.
Yeah.
Let's get in nice and close. I'll hit the close one. And then there's your fade out.
Yeah.
Remember, that's 1 second because it's 30 frames. 29 frames, one second, right?
So nice how it does that. It shows you frames.
Same thing with the audio. So we call this a cross dissolve, or like cross dissolve for the video, or a fade out for the music, right? I also want to show you some stacking stuff. I guess we can do that now. Zoom out here, come back in here, get in close. Now we want to zoom out just a little bit, maybe here. So I brought an intro in, and this intro, I'm going to grab this and I'm going to throw it on an upper layer. So the way that the layers work is, I'm going to scrunch this down a little bit so I can see everything. We can view this a couple of different ways. If you want to throw a bunch of stuff on there, you can show it like that. All right. We only have 2 layers, but if I had like 8 or 9 different layers, you might want to show it like that. But I'll just scrunch these down for now. I want to intro with this, and then I want to fade into my main video here, right? So the way the videos layer works is the top layer is what's visible, and it hides what's underneath it, right? For the audio, they multiply. They both combine together. So for fading, I don't need to fade this. I'm going to get rid of that, and I'm going to fade the top one because I want one video fading into another. Zip in a little more, and then probably about there. I don't know. Okay, so watch what happens. Did you see that? Here, I'll make it a little more dramatic here. A nice long fade. I'm going to fade one video into another. No, I better move it underneath. Well, I'll show you what happens, right? It fades to black, and then that comes in. So this makes the video more transparent or less transparent, right? So it's fading to black, but it's only because we don't have anything underneath it. When you put something underneath it, it fades into whatever's underneath it. See that? So it actually just makes it more transparent. It reveals what's underneath.
So when you're moving the head there, you can just stop and start by hitting spacebar?
Oh, yeah. So that's spacebar stop or play and stop. You can do that, or you can play it here. If you like to use your mouse, you can play it backwards. That's always fun listening.
Some weird Led Zeppelin stuff right there.
Another thing that you will find really handy if you're scrubbing through a lot of footage, move your middle finger up to the K button. So K, J, and L are buttons that you want to use if you're scrubbing through footage, right? L is play, K is stop, J is backwards, K is stop. Hit L, and then you hit L again, and then that's double speed. So if you're scrubbing through a lot of footage and you got, who got time for that, right? You want to listen, but you don't have time to sit there all day to listen to a half-hour clip when you could listen to it in 15 minutes. you can play it at double speed. This is normally how I edit PC. I can edit everyone this way except for Prophet Ed. He talks really fast. Or you can go quad speed.
Which is Ben Shapiro speed.
Yeah. So if you're editing Ben Shapiro, you can't do this, but
yeah. You actually have to slow it down.
That's useful. So, and then once again, J is backwards, double speed backwards, quad speed backwards. I'll hit L and it slows it. And I'll just makes it go the other way. But yeah, you get the idea. So that could be really helpful when you're trying to scrub through a lot of footage. I use that constantly. That is something that will take more computing power because it's reading through the file twice as fast. Let us continue what we were doing. Oh, so as I mentioned, the audio. Let's unlink this and bring this back over. No. So I'm gonna bring this audio back in. I don't know why I can't see the waveform. That is odd. Hit save. Save often. Like any program.
What did you do to save? I know it's a dumb question, but did you say Control S or?
Huh?
What did you just hit hotkeys to save, or did you?
Oh yeah, I just Control S is save, or you can do file save project. So the project is what we're saving. We're not overwriting any of the source content.
Right.
All right, so we brought that back over. Let's say we want to crossfade between the two of these, right? So we're going to fade our music down on the intro and then fade in on the speaking, right? So this is going to bring this volume down from full power down to nothing. And this is from nothing up to full power.
I like this functionality a lot more than Adobe. It seems a lot easier.
So that's, yeah, it's pretty similar to what you do in Adobe. It's just different ways of doing it. It's more convenient. This functionality is more convenient in Resolve just because it's, you don't have to grab anything else. It's all right there.
Yeah, I was going to say you didn't have to drag it into the project itself. It's already built in.
Yeah, it's pretty convenient like that. So in Adobe, you'd have to use it as an effect, but there are hotkeys in Adobe for that. But we don't care about Adobe anymore because we kind of kicked in with the curve. We used to use Premiere and it was just not stable and we kept having too many problems with it and we were paying a lot of money for it. So we decided that we were going to move to Resolve that was just a lot more stable and free. So, yeah. Well, let's talk about the audio real quick. I don't know why we can't see the waveform that kind of just dropped off for some reason. I'm going to create a new timeline just to show you. Create new timeline using selected clip. Timeline 2, yeah, sure, whatever. All right, so now I have two timelines and I double click on that timeline, double click there, double click, please. There we go, okay. Now what's up?
So you're in the second timeline, basically a duplicate of that same overall video.
Well, I didn't copy it. I just created a new timeline and I told it to put the source footage down on there. So this was just the basic source footage.
So like a new working template with the same source footage.
But I see what you're saying. You don't see any waveform for your audio.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what happened. Let me see if I can fix it by changing the view. Yeah. It may have just frozen up. Oh, there we go. Maybe I unclicked something. Okay. Seeing the waveform is fairly important because that's going to allow us to adjust our audio. So let's do audio now. We talked a lot about lining things up here. Talked about some transitions. We talked about how the audio stacks between the these different layers, they combine, and the video always shows what's on top until you reveal what's beneath it. Audio is very important to what we do, and we want to make sure that we're utilizing all of the headroom that we have available. So looking at this audio, we want to boost it. It's like the Price is Right. How high can we go without going over? We don't want the audio to clip because that would create distortion, but we also want it to be as loud for our viewers as possible so they're not having to turn the stereo up like all the way and all of a sudden something else comes on and it's blaring loud, right? So the easiest way to do that is I'm going to click on this audio clip here and I'm going to hover. All right, you see this line here? This line allows us to adjust the gain directly. Right, hovering here, drag it up, and you can see that I can increase or decrease the overall volume right here. So this is just for this clip. I can also turn up the volume by selecting audio 1, which is on my channel over here, and boosting it here. But you're not going to see it on the waveform. You're only going to see it on the output. So when you're playing it, let me show you. Watch. Right. So you don't see it on the waveform.
You see it going up into the red occasionally.
But you do see it over here.
Yeah.
Being in the red is okay. You just don't want this top red to hit. That's clipping, right? So if we came up a lot, we would see clipping. Now we need some yelling here. Where's the yelling? All right, so there's some distortion. So that's not what we want. We'll go back to here. This audio actually looks pretty good because it probably already has some level of compression on it. When you are recording yourselves with a camera, you're probably not going to have that. This is already kind of filtered through a soundboard. So I will say that I know it is already compressed. But a lot of times you have big spikes and then you have little spikes, and you want to kind of normalize everything. I am going to grab this other timeline here, and we'll hack this up a bit. So I'll choose a section of audio that's kind of erratic. Let's say we want to be in here. I'm going to say in here, out here. And then we'll just slice that up so we can just look at this by itself. I would hit delete because I want to ripple, delete, and then move our ins and outs here. All right. So once again, we can increase the volume and decrease it. But if we want to add compression, which is usually the best way to do it, what compression does is it takes all the high points and it brings them down, and then it compensates by bringing everything else up. So it really kind of normalizes all the audio. So if you go into the audio tab here, audio effects, we'll go to a multi-band compressor. We can drag this, we can drag it onto audio channel 1, which affects everything on 1. And if you've already chopped up, if you chop this clip up into a bunch of sequences, you may want to just do this, or you drag it right onto here. We haven't chopped it up yet, so I can drag and release here. It's now on this clip, and it now asks us what we want to do. Holy cow, there's some voice leveler. Okay, I can send you guys a preset, but basically we just want to boost up in the vocal range. What we do is we crush all the highs, and then we compensate by boosting everything up again. And I can basically save this and send it to you if you want a nice tuned
yes, please.
compressor. Yeah. I don't know why there's so many knobs on here. There should be so many knobs.
If you're saying "Holy cow," there's so many controls. I
know what they all mean. I'm thinking of you guys. Basically, there's threshold and gain. Those are the main ones that you want to pay attention to. Threshold means bring everything down, right? Gain means compensate and bring everything back up. I locked something up here. All right, come on. Yeah, there it is. Okay, that's my compensation right there. So yeah, I can send this to you guys. But basically, this is just going to compress it in a way that works, and then just close that. So if we want to take a look at that effect, we can click on the clip, go to inspector, and then go to, well, this is audio because I've just selected the audio. I should have them both selected. I don't know why it's link clips. There we go. There they're linked. Okay. Still, it's only selecting one. Weird. Oh, you know what? That's why. Okay. Now I selected both of them. That's how it's going to be by default. You're going to select it, right? And then you're going to say video and audio. Okay. So the audio here, if we go down to the bottom, we can see that, whoa, not all the way down. All right, this is our compressor here. And if we want to make adjustments, that pops that out again. Or you can get rid of it and just chunk it. Some of these come by default, so don't get thrown off by these. This is another way to adjust your volume. See that? I can just type in 0. I want to get back where it was. You know, if you're in stereo, you can pan, you can change the pitch. There's a few different things you can do. And these are just default, you know, template effects that are on every clip. And then ones that you add, like multi-band compressor, they pop on here, and then you can see them in here. So this is the inspector tab. You want to make sure you make note of it. All these buttons are just, it's just all of this stuff laid out there. It doesn't really make any sense to see it that way, but that's where it is. I just want to show you where it is in case if you're not paying attention and you drop 3 multi-band compressors onto the same thing and you're like, oh, I didn't mean to do that, or do I have compression on here or not? Here's where it is. Same thing for video effects. If we start doing some video effects, you will see them show up in here for this clip. Note that you can put it on the entire thing, or you can put it on that. Effects. No. Yeah, I can drop it. Well, maybe that's not a good example. I'll show you when we get into the color tab how the same thing works for the video. So that's the inspector tab. Make sure you don't forget about that, because you will need to know where it is. All right, so we've covered audio. Remember, this is your overall audio for everything. This is for just one. And as you continue to add, you know, layers in here, more sliders will show up for the layers. This is toggled on and off. I always leave it on because I like to see where it is. And when I'm playing, you will see the final output. So if you put a compressor on here, you will not see it in the waveform, but you will see it over here. And you just want to play through it. Play through some high points to make sure it's not clipping. And then listen to it to make sure it sounds right. I'm going to pop back over to here. Pop back over to our original timeline. I'm going to go back to the beginning. And I want to show you that what right sounds like. This is already kind of mastered to an extent here. It should sound like a natural transition. If the intro video that we have here, or basically any song or whatever you have edited, sounds like a smooth transition volume-wise, then you're successful. If it's too quiet, like you find like you're turning your volume up when you're listening to the speaking, that means the speaking's got to come up. There should be a clean transition between the pre-formatted audio and the speaking. So I'm just gonna shorten this up a little bit, drag this out. No, I'll just show you what I mean. Looking for a nice, easy transition. Maybe we've done it right. Let's listen.
So I'm not hearing any of the audio that you probably are hearing. But
oh, you're not hearing that? Okay, sorry. Let me. Oh, it's kind of hard to do it without.
the only audio we've had while you're doing all of that is just your voice. At least for me.
Yeah, same.
All right. Yeah, I don't have it on in Zoom. I guess I forgot that it was not on. I don't know if there's a way to turn it on for both. Did you guys hear that?
Nope.
Didn't hear it?
Oh, no.
I don't know. Well, I'll just describe it. It should sound natural. Like, it shouldn't sound like there's a huge volume difference. You shouldn't want to turn your volume up as soon as you get to the speaking portion. Right? It should be natural, because you don't want people to turn their speakers up for the speaking, and then all of a sudden there's natural video, and all of a sudden their speakers are blaring. So just make sure you pay attention to the audio, and it should sound natural to you. Sometimes it can be hard to tell. But if you start with something that's already edited, like some kind of music file or something like that, it'll kind of help calibrate your expectation. And just make sure it's not clipping. If you see the red thing over here, then it's clipping. So this is clipping because it's red. So we don't want that. All right.
Okay, Jay, I know that, bringing the sliders like into view and everything, that just reminded me of with Adobe, we used like the presets, like the workspaces or whatever. Do you have any of those set for this program, or is it pretty much just default to what
this
want?
is all default. So what you see here is what you're going to get. Let me go on to the color tab. So sometimes you're going to have to adjust the color. You probably don't want to go crazy adjusting the color. Like, I wouldn't waste too much time on it, just because you're going to be, this video is going to be displayed on a lot of different screens that have different color profiles. So you don't have to go crazy, but you may have to make some overall adjustments. So moving down to the tabs here, getting back to our editing. You've got the edit tab, and then the next one over is the Fusion tab. Fusion tab is for advanced features. So we're not really going to get into this, but this is where you can go crazy with a bunch of different effects and motion graphics and things like that. So skipping right over that, we're going to go to the color tab. All right, so this is your color workspace here. Davinci Resolve it's a newer editing software so far as like nonlinear editors that is like a full functioning suite. What Davinci Resolve is known for is for color grading. Davinci Resolve is pretty much the top end color grading tool that Hollywood uses. Everyone uses Davinci Resolve. It's like the industry standard for color grading. So some of the features can be a little advanced, but it's worth spending some time learning. So this is our source footage here. These are the color wheels that we're going to use to adjust our color. And I'm going to change it to, what do I want to change it to? Lift gamma theme. I don't want that. Colors. No, I can't remember how to get to it. Oh, there it is. No. Oh, there we go. Okay. So I bumped it over to shadows, midtones, and highlights. I think that's going to make a little more sense to you as you're editing. So I would just stick with that. So Davinci Resolve, it allows you to change the color based on the intensity. So you have, like, looking at our frame here, we have shadows, right? We have highlights that are white, and then we kind of have the midtones that are kind of in the middle. So it's about where the exposure is at within a frame, right? So within the shadows, I can bring the overall color down. Ooh. Let me show you. I'm adding green to it, to all the shadows. You see that? So everything that's dark now has green. So for the highlights, I want to make everything red, right? So everything that's white has now got a hint of red to it. And everything that's dark still has green. So you see how I just changed it based on the exposure. That's how the color wheels work. So you can make fine-tune adjustments, double click, bring it back to center. And then this is overall. If you want to make a global adjustment, I'm going to make everything blue. See that? Make everything yellow, right? So I'm kind of over accentuating, but that's essentially how it works. There's a few tools in the bottom here you want to pay attention to. Contrast. We usually bump up the contrast. We don't have to go crazy, just a little bit. All right, now watch our source footage. Boom. A little more contrast added. Our camcorders tend to be a little bit grayscale. So it's helpful to boost the contrast on them. Depending on what you're shooting with, you may or may not want to bump the contrast accordingly. Also, there's different clips that you can select. So just pay attention to make sure you're on the right clip. The little circular color thing here means we've edited it and added a color profile. That one we have not. So I'll grab this one, and this is our intro. I'm going to go into the middle of the intro here. All right. And we can make some color adjustments here if we want to. I don't care, go crazy, do something wonky. You can grab the overall exposure here. So this would be an important one. Ooh. Off the scale. Yeah. I guess it's a little touchy, but this scale on the bottom here is the exposure. So you have exposure for shadows, midtones, and highlights. And then you have overall. So you probably will need to adjust the exposure if your exposure is a little bit off. Let me reset these. That doesn't look weird. If you find that your video, either the exposure changed while you were shooting the video, you could adjust that here. If you're a little under, a little over, this is where you want to go to make changes to that. You just grab it and drag it either way, and then you can also put it in direct. And note that it's red, green, blue, right? So if you wanted to bring up a particular color, let me go back to this one here. I wanted to bring the blues up to, I don't know, something, that is kind of doing the same thing as we were doing with this wheel, but just overall. Does that make sense, guys? I'm kind of just hand waving here, but
So I guess the graphic there is like a thumb wheel underneath the.
Yeah, you grab it one way or the other, and you can change the overall. You can type things in direct.
Yeah.
Like
Do you have
that.
a preset for this, KJ? Or is it
No,
by every time?
it depends on your environment. I would say that if you're shooting in a particular environment consistently, and it's a predictable environment, then this works. If you're shooting outside or you have a window light that comes and goes, it can be really tricky.
I meant for the sanctuary, though.
Oh, for the sanctuary, we do have a preset. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Now,
how can we access those presets here in DaVinci? Like,
no, actually, I stand corrected. I don't have a preset built for this sanctuary. All I do is I bump the contrast. We have the cameras dialed in pretty much where they need to go.
Yeah, so and your lighting now is really good too.
This is the only preset that we do.
Gotcha. So okay, 1.175.
Yeah. So you may find it convenient to put numbers in directly into here if you're too much dragging around,
Gotcha.
I've got a couple of calls scheduled for 9 and one another after. Don't know. Obviously, we're not going to get to all of this, and it's quite a lot of information.
Yeah. Well, we're getting close to done. I mean, I'm just showing you the color tab, and then we're going to show you the export tab. So it's up to you. I mean, you could watch the end later.
Yeah, I may have to do that because
I'll make it available.
Probably wrap up in about 10 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll make it available. I'll email the link to all you guys.
Yeah, we just need to take out the password info before it goes anywhere outside of this group, though.
Yeah, it would just be a private email to everyone.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, but it will need to be scrubbed off the video.
All right, so with the color, just make sure you know what you're selecting and you're editing, because you can grab multiple different things. You can also put an adjustment layer on top of multiple clips. I'm not going to go through that, but just know that if you've already chopped up your video into a bunch of little clips, you don't have to apply that same color profile over and over and over again. You know, you can do it once in one higher layer that adjusts everything underneath it. And then just pay attention to that. All right, so bump back over here. You should be able to see in the inspector video, you should be able to see our color profile. Maybe not.
Gotcha.
Let's see if we can see it here. Well, maybe it isn't there. You can definitely get to it in the color tab. I thought it applied it as a regular effect, but the other effects would be in there. All right, so the Fairlight audio, you can do a lot of audio tweaking here. We're not really going to mess with it, but if you do find the need to dive into more audio control than what you have in just the basic edit tab, you could go here. So the edit tab is kind of the Swiss Army knife of the functionality, and then the advanced features. I mean, you could do like 32 channel multi-track in here. There's a lot of things you can do. Deliver. All right, so we're done. It's time to punch this out here. So for your purposes, start with the YouTube preset. I've got it on 1080p, which is probably what you're mostly going to be using. Our default frame rate. QuickTime or MP4. I usually use MP4. It doesn't really matter too much. It's a container. It's basically the set of instructions that tells the computer how to interpret your video codec. MP4 is a little more common, so that's what we use. H.264 is the compression algorithm. For the free version, we only have access to H.264. If you want H.265, then you would have to get the paid version. Yeah, these are fine. Okay. And then you just select the location, and then you just name your file, and that's it. And then you hit add to render queue. I'll just drop this on the desktop. Test. Sure. Save. Okay. Oh, also, pay attention to this. So this is entire timeline, and this is in and out range.
Oh.
So entire timeline is the whole shebang, right? If I want to do in and out, I&O, right? Now I've got ins and outs. So I'm just going to do a little subset. Here, let's grab a little bit of that. A little bit of that. All right, cool. So in and out. Now hit add to render queue, and it pops it over here, and you can hit start render. So let me hit render. So just a little guy. And on this computer, it's a 12 core, so it crunches through it pretty quick. On your laptops, if you're rendering locally, you will be sweating. This will put a hurting on most computers. Oh, that's all there is to it. It was a little clip. One thing I will mention, the free version does not have hardware encoding, and the paid version does. So it's going to utilize your primary CPU cores, and it'll typically take a lot longer. If you pay for the Primo version, or if we get the Primo version for church, it'll hardware encode, which means it'll use a dedicated part of the chip that is designed specifically for decoding and encoding H.264 and H.265 content, and it'll render much quicker, and it will not use all your CPU, right? So That's the encoding piece. If you guys want to run this on your own laptops, you must have a video card. There's no, it really doesn't work if you don't have a discrete video card. NVIDIA video cards work best. So Tony, you might be okay. I know you have like a gaming laptop. That one might work all right with it. You, at a minimum, you should have at least like a quad core. You should have, 16 gigs of RAM would be advisable. You should have a reasonably fast, preferably a solid state hard drive with enough space for your video footage. If you have older video card, like an older NVIDIA card, like Emily's computer has a card from like 2013, 2014. It's not compatible with the latest version of Resolve. Just make note of that. You have to use an older version of Davinci Resolve if you have a video card that's like older than 2015. So just keep that in mind. You can use AMD graphics cards, although they don't work quite as well. But if that's what you have, you can definitely use it, and you can get away with that.
As long as we're doing this remote, though, that doesn't apply, right? Like
yeah, if you're using it remotely, it's based on the remote computer that you're hooked into.
Yeah.
So in this case, we're running off of the church computer, which, as I mentioned, is a fairly new AMD 12 core with hyperthreading. Hey, just for kicks. Well, let me show it. But this is a, yeah, there we go. Logical processors. So this is 24 thread, 12 core machine. So it's got some juice behind it. So you will not have to worry about processing power. Certainly not for 1080p. If you're recording in 4K, you might make the sweat a little bit. I think 1080p is probably better just based on file size for the type of content that we're doing. I would not waste my time with 4K unless I knew why I wanted 4K. So take that under advisement. For the render settings, you're probably going to be just fine using the built-in YouTube settings. I do typically choose to bump this up for the stuff we do. The default is like 10,000 kilobits per second or 10 megabits. I usually bump that up to 16 under the custom settings. I'll hit YouTube first and let it format for YouTube, and then I'll bump it back over and I'll bump that up. Just my preference, it makes a slightly bigger file size, more quality, but at some point there's diminishing returns on the file size. So just keep that in mind, and you get upload too.
And for our purposes, our online course platform has a 2 gig limit for video.
Yeah,
it recommends Handbrake, so it's probably best to just leave the YouTube presets without bumping up file size.
Yeah, you can use the YouTube presets. If you do need to shrink it more than this because it's not fitting, you could change it to 720p, like so. Or you can shrink the file size a little bit by going to 1080p, then going back over to custom, and then changing the bitrate here to something lower. Just keep in mind, at a certain point, you're better off lowering the resolution versus lowering the bitrate. So I wouldn't lower this any lower than like, 6,000 maybe, 6 megabits.
And there's always Handbrake for messing with your highs and lows, right? To get
yeah, you can use Handbrake too. This computer has Handbrake on it. It's usually easiest just to encode it right the first way, right out of camera. If you have to re-encode it with Handbrake, you're touching the file one extra time. But if you do want to use Handbrake, you can see it's right here if you're on this computer.
Oh, nice.
So, make sure you save it when you're done. Leave your file in here.
KJ, when it comes to saving, if we save to dedicated files on this computer, it will automatically be on the NAS, and so we'll have that file security.
Well, they'll be backed up. I can show you what we back up. We usually back up, entire drives, or at least within capture. Like keep it in the file convention.
We have a SOM in capture if you go back. I think on the capture drive.
There it is. Okay. Well, I would say, let me look and see what we have backed up.
So I was thinking, like, rather than figuring out a NAS saving workflow, if we could just always remote in here.
Yeah, if you want to keep your footage on this computer, like I said, we run a backup routine. We try not to back up the entire computer all at once. We like to just offload stuff and keep it in 2 places and not run the backup cycle on it. So we
Right.
usually point this at current folders for the current year. Let's take a look, because I am curious. I think we do back it up. I just want to make sure. So you can remote into this computer and you can get to it, or you can keep it on the NAS and you can edit directly off the NAS. The NAS is fast enough for the majority of stuff that you're working on. Sure. Let me choose. Export. All right. We'll just do the whole thing. Capture. Okay, so now your SOM folders are saved. If you get a lot of stuff in there, I will make you break it out by year, and we'll just have you archive the older stuff. And next time you run the backup cycle, it will back up your stuff. So as far as backup goes, just make sure you let me know what's on here, because we don't run a backup in every folder.
Yeah, it will just be the cache of videos for the SOM online teachings, which will stick in the SOM folder, and we'll probably break it out into its separate subfolder so you'll be able to see it.
Yeah, so I've got this backing up on the capture drive, your SOM folder here, and on export, same thing. We've got this one backing up. So you'll know it, whatever's in there will be backed up on the NAS. If you do want to use the NAS directly, so this shows up here as a drive. It can be a point of convenience, like if you edit video and you put it on your computer, and then you want to move it off onto the NAS when you get to church, so you can remote in and use the video editing computer. You know, the putting it on the NAS is a really convenient way to do it. You know, you can just create a folder on here, you know.
Nice. Okay.
There you go. You know, and you can easily get to it from any computer on the network.
Oh, nice.
Also, if we're fighting over computers and you need to use a different computer, keeping it on the NAS, you know, it kind of gives you a way to work on stuff on a different computer and still get to your source files. So,
yeah.
The project file where you're making all the changes and edits within your project is local to the computer, but you can export those. So if you need to continue working on a project somewhere else, you just go to, I think it's file export and
well, I think that the Chrome remote is a nice solution. It can
export project, yeah.
You know, I don't foresee us running into each other that much editing on this computer.
Yeah, probably not. But if you ever do, you know, the projection computer is also a decent machine, and it's more than capable of editing the stuff that we're working on.
The same they're uploaded to it.
Say what?
And it's got the same. It's got Davinci. It's got Resolve and.
Yeah, so it's got Resolve on it. It's got Handbrake. It's got the same stuff on it. It's not quite as powerful, but it, you know, it's like I said, it's more than enough for the stuff we're working on.
Yeah, yeah, sounds great.
So KJ, how is in your opinion, how is like doing the color grading and stuff over the Chrome remote?
I mean, it mostly depends on your local monitor. Whatever your monitor is set to is going to affect what you're seeing. So that's why I emphasize just getting it so it looks decent. You know, if it's really off, you're going to know.
I know with TeamViewer, it wasn't very, like I almost always had to go actually into the church or put the file on my computer because the colors weren't always great over the connection.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you can maybe tweak your Chrome remote settings to try to get more quality out of it. I'm not really sure.
All right, good.
I haven't done it side by side.
I was just curious if you saw any difference or not.
Yeah, I don't know. You'd have to give us some feedback on that when you try it. So,
is there a way to, if we wanted to get on the like if I wanted to work on the file, but I wanted to work on it through my computer, do we have like a VPN or anything like that set up?
if you want to work on the file remotely?
Yeah.
Well, there's a couple of ways you could do it. Depending on the size of the file, you could upload it and then download it. So you can do that inside of Chrome Remote. Upload file, download. If you can just download it and select the file you want and grab it. You can zip a bunch of files together. Just keep in mind that it may not be feasible if you've got some really large files. Yeah. Or if you had something local you wanted to push up, that's also a good tool. If you're on the Wi-Fi, if you're transferring files over the Wi-Fi, it's going to be slow unless I give you access to the internal like the fast Wi-Fi, the unlocked one, or you can use Ethernet if you have Ethernet, if you're moving files around. So just keep that in mind, that if you want to know why it's so slow moving files, I have a hidden network that is unlocked that I can share with you if you need it. But you just have to promise not to be a bandwidth bandit when we're uploading, because that's how I control the available connection. So,
Roger.
any other questions?
Nope. Thanks, KJ. That's really helpful. And I mean, even I felt like I could probably take a crack at some of this editing myself. So,
yeah, it's Davinci Resolve is a great piece of software, and the fact that they give away this much functionality for free is kind of mind-boggling. There's other video editing tools out there, but this is the real deal. This is literally what Hollywood uses to color grade all their stuff. It is the industry standard for color grading. And the fact that they do, non-linear video editing now is kind of a plus. So it's worth using it. And then when you do need more functionality, you can pay the $300 and get the full unlocked DaVinci Studio.
Yeah. I like that it has the iMovie functionality, intuitive feel, but it has more capability and definitely moving towards the Adobe customization.
The other thing I should mention is if you guys want to do multicam, I don't know how fancy you want to get, but it has a great multicam functionality. We're not really going to get to that within this class, but we can do another class on multicam where I can share with you a video or like a YouTube video on how to do the multicam. If you have specific functionality that you have questions about, there's a lot of great YouTube tutorials. It's not as good as Premiere, because Premiere is just more established and there's a lot more people that use it, but there's still a fair amount of stuff that you can find online.
Nice.
As you're figuring things out.
That's great. Well, this is super helpful. I appreciate it. Any of you guys have any other questions?
I will when I start playing with it.
Yeah. So yeah, just I would say just be respectful of the resources. Obviously, just try to keep things neat and organized. We have a file convention here. You're welcome to make your own folder. If you want something backed up, you need to let me know to add it to the backup cycle. You're welcome to work off the NAS. Just keep in mind service times and things like that if anyone else is using it. Make sure you spend a little bit of time familiarizing yourself with Chrome Remote Desktop. With Chrome Remote Desktop, it's pretty easy to do that. You can add Chrome Remote Desktop to your computer without adding it to this list. You can choose to add it to this list if you wanted to, but really just to get in and access any of these computers that are available, you don't have to do that.
Yeah, I just added it at the beginning of the training, so.
Yep.
Sounds good. I'm excited about that because I didn't like TeamViewer, so this makes it really nice. Yeah,
this is a bit simpler, and like I said, with all the problems we have with TeamViewer, this is really makes it a lot easier. So.
Nice. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much, KJ. I appreciate your time. I'm going to make this link available through private email, same email group we have. I'm going to actually just put it right in that thread so you guys can get it. I'll make it downloadable as well.
Okay, and I'm going to pass around this PowerPoint slide. It gives you some step-by-step instructions if you get stuck.
Oh, it'd be brilliant. Thanks so much.
Thank you.